Okay, there goes the timer. So let's stop wherever we are. So what was your impression? Was that difficult or what was your impression?
Yeah, there was a few questions that got me, and I wasn't sure. But as you mentioned at the beginning, I just used the process of elimination, and I tried to select the best answer that I could. Some for me, the challenging part is the some of the terminology is um,
Okay.
it's
Okay,
hard to
so no, I'm
distinguish.
sorry, go ahead. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying it's some of the terminology is difficult for me to distinguish.
Yeah. The terminology can be
Yeah,
a little bit tricky. ITIL uses a specific
yeah.
terminology. And so that's one of the things that, we have to become accustomed to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the questions on the screen. And what I would like for you guys to do is just to put your answers in the chat window. And so we'll just check our answers like that. So I'm going to start off with question number one. Can everyone see the screen? Everyone sees the question booklet there. Is that what you guys see?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, and AJ has already answered the first question. I haven't even read it. Yes. Which practice is responsible for moving components to live environments? Yes, the answer is D. That would be deployment management. Very good. Number two, which practice includes the classification and ownership of queries and requests from users? So the answer here is the service desk. So the answer is A, correct. Number three, which practice defines metrics that reflect the customer's experience of a service? Okay, so the answer here is C, service level management. So, so service level management is the practice that's going to negotiate the SLAs with the users, with the customers, right? And we talked about how those SLAs need to be outcome based because this is how the customer measures, whether the service is delivering value or not. And so we have to have feedback mechanisms, ongoing discussions with the customer to ensure that the metrics that we use reflect the customer experience. So the answer there is C, service level management. Number four, what is the primary use of a change schedule? Yes, so the answer there is C, to plan changes and to avoid conflicts. Very good. Number five, which service management dimension is focused on activities and how these are coordinated? Yes, so the answer there is value streams and processes. How do we organize and coordinate the activities of the organization in an integrated way that enables us to be able to meet our objectives? Very good. Number six, how does categorization of incidents assist the incident management practice? So here the answer is A. It helps direct the incident to the correct support area. So categorization of incidents is about routing the incident to the correct support area Prioritization of incidents concerns ensuring that the incidents with the highest business impact are resolved first. So, you know, we want to be clear that, we understand the difference between categorizing incidents and prioritizing incidents. And number 7 is a fill in the blank question. So identify the missing words or word. A service is a means of enabling value co-creation by facilitating blank that customers want to achieve. Yes, the answer here is B. That would be outcomes. So outcomes that customers want to achieve without those customers having to manage specific costs and risks associated with achieving that outcome. Number 8, which is a recommendation of the continuous improvement practice? Yes, the answer here is A. There should at least be a small team dedicated to leading continuous improvement efforts. Number 9, which is a potential benefit of using an IT service management tool to support the incident management practice? So the answer to number 9 is actually B. It may provide automated matching of incidents to problems or known errors, right? Um, Now C doesn't work because C is really an activity of service level management. So service level management is going to work with supplier management to help ensure that the contracts are negotiated in a way that enables the service provider to be able to meet the agreements it's made with its users and customers, right? Number 10, which role submits service requests? Okay, so the answer to number 10 is going to be A, the user or their authorized representative. And I can understand how you might get tripped up on that because, we talk about internal consumers, external consumers, internal customers, external customers. And so I can see how that might happen. But if we go back to the purpose statement for service request management, it's very specific when it speaks to user initiated requests, and that these requests are considered to be a normal part of service delivery, service delivery actions. So the answer there is A, the user or that user's authorized representative. Number 11, which practice provides a single point of contact for users? So this is going to be the service desk. So the answer here is C. So don't forget that the service desk is that single point of contact, a single point of coordination between the service provider and the users, the customers of the organization. And so the service desk, yes, it is tightly intertwined with incident management and service request management. Uh, but service request management is about service requests. Incident management is about incidents, and so that's why it's intertwined with the service desk. So both of those different types of uh, have to be filtered through that one single point. So you have that single point of contact. So the answer there is C, the service desk. Number 12, which guiding principle recommends that the 4 dimensions of service management are considered? So everyone seemed to know that one. Yes, The answer is A, think and work holistically. So very good. I'm happy to see that everyone got that. Number 13, which would be supported by the service request management practice? So the answer here is B. So service requests, one thing we have to remember is that service requests, I think they use the word predefined, right? And so these are things that we can request that are a normal part of service delivery, right? So if we look at a request to authorize a change, okay, well, that's something that's supported by change enablement. If we look at C, a request to restore service after a service interruption, that's going to be supported by incident management. If we look at D, this is something that's supported by problem management. So we really want to, it would be useful to, you know, revisit the purpose statements for the practices, to make sure we understand what those purpose statements entail. Because yes, there will be typically questions that will seek to uh, determine how well you understand the purposes of each of the practices. And in addition to that, there will be, for some practices, there will be additional information that they'll want to test you on as well. Number 14, which practice is the responsibility of everyone in the organization? Yes, so that would be D, continual improvement. So we talked about how we want to establish a continual improvement culture across the entire organization. So one of the things we want to do is we want to impress upon everyone within the organization that continual improvement is everyone's responsibility. It should be incorporated into your overall whatever role you have in the organization. It's one of the responsibilities that you have is to have an eye towards continual improvement. Number 15 is another fill in the blank question. The purpose of the information security management practice is to blank the organization's information. Yes, so the answer here is D, to protect the organization's information, right? Number 16, which guiding principle recommends collecting data before deciding what can be reused? So the answer to number 16 is going to be B, the start where you are guiding principle. So again, start where you are, ask us to assess our current state, using our observations, using measurement so that we can properly understand what our current state is. And this can help us to understand what we might be able to reuse or build up on in our current state in order to move towards to arrive at our target state. So the answer there is B. Number 17, which is not usually included as part of incident management. So the answer here is actually C, detailed procedures for the diagnosis of incidents. A doesn't work because it is possible, and actually it's sort of recommended that we have scripts that can do things like collect information from users during that initial contact, or as we're, entering information. So I start putting in the user's name. I might have a script that automatically fills in, the department they work in, the area they work in, and what services they do. Oh, this guy is one of our auditors. He's in the auditor subgroup, uh, you know, readiness and support. And these are the software applications that are associated with the people that work in that area. So, yeah, so A is something that would be or is it would be great, perhaps I should say, that would be included as part of incident management. But the question here said, which is not. So again, read the question, read the responses, read the question again, and look out for those absolute words. And those will usually be in all caps. And so here we had not in all caps. So we want to be sure that we carefully read that question. Number 18,
So
which
going back to
describes,
17 for a minute.
yeah, sure.
So D, is that referring to can you go over the difference between C and D?
Well, so D is really, when it comes to more complicated incidents, we're going to need to depend more on knowledge and expertise rather than, a procedure or a series of steps, right? Because quite often when there's a major incident, it's not that straightforward, exactly what's going on here. And so, it takes, it's about, having a knowledge of the system and people having a higher level of knowledge and more expertise about what's going on rather than, okay, we have a incident here and these are the typical steps that we follow. Uh, so incident management, if we go back to those slides, we talked about how we can have a we can have a technique more so than a detailed procedure about how we're going to investigate and diagnose incidents, because it's not really practical to try to create detailed procedures for every type of incident we might encounter. So it's more like a template for how we're going to approach the investigation and diagnosis of incidents rather than trying to elaborate detailed procedures for every type of incident that we might encounter, because we don't even know every type of incident that we might encounter. And so that's why C is incorrect. I mean, it's the correct answer, but it's not, included as part of incident. That's the reason it's not included as part of incident management. Number 18, which describes the nature of the guiding principles? And it looks like everyone has already answered that one. Yes, the answer is A. Guiding principles can guide an organization in all circumstances. Number 19, which statement about a change authority is correct? Yes, so we talked about 3 different types of changes, right? Standard change, normal change, emergency change, and best practice says that we should have a change authority assigned to each type of change. And the reason for that is so that we can manage each type of change in the most effective and efficient way. Number 20, which practice has the purpose of making new and changed services and features available for use? So the answer here is C, right? Release management. So release management is making the new and changed features and services available for use. Deployment management is actually moving the components, the software, etc., into the live environment. So the answer is C. 21, which value chain activity ensures that everyone understands, that people understand the organization's vision. And this one might be a little bit tricky, right? The answer here is B, the plan service value chain activity. So we have to refer back to the purpose of the purpose statement, right? And so the purpose of the plan value chain activity is to ensure a shared understanding of the vision, current status, and improvement direction for all four dimensions and products and services across the organization. So planning is always strategic, but at the same time, planning occurs at all levels of the organization. So the answer here is B. And so what would have, for me, I would have homed in on the word, on this last part of the sentence, organization's vision. And, and because vision is mentioned in the plan value chain purpose statement, I would have asked myself, okay, so delivering support is really about, and it's in the purpose statement, delivery and support of services, uh, you know, and meeting expectations. Obtain build is about acquiring components, right? And then uh, improve is, uh, continual improvement across the entire organization. So it's really important to, for the purposes of being successful when you sit the exam, to know those purpose statements for each of the value chain activities. Number 22, another value chain activity question. Which statement about the value chain activities is correct? Yes, so the answer here is going to be D. Each value chain activity contributes to the value chain by transforming specific inputs into outputs. So we talked about how the service value chain activities are the higher level activities of a value stream. And so the service value chain activities are combined with and supported by the ITIL practices, which represent sets of resources that are designed to accomplish specific tasks, specific work. And so taken together, these create our value streams, and that our value streams always correspond to specific organizational scenarios. So the practices that are involved with uh, creating a new, the practices that are involved with uh, resolving a problem will differ somewhat from, and the service value chain will also differ as well, as opposed to the service value chain activities and the practices that are the structure of the value stream that's associated with resolving different types of incidents. Number 23, what is the purpose of the supplier management practice? Yes, the answer is A, and I see you guys didn't allow yourselves to be tricked by answer C, right? Which starts out in a similar way, but then at a certain point, it just goes off the rails, right? So yes, the answer is A, to ensure that the organization's suppliers and performance are managed appropriately to support the seamless provision of quality products and services. Very good. Number 24, what are the two types of cost that a service consumer should evaluate? So the answer there is B, the cost removed by the service and the cost imposed by the service, right? So C doesn't work because that's really from the perspective of the service provider, right? The cost of provisioning the service, and the cost of improving the service. Those are the concerns of the service provider. So, you know, thinking back to that chart that we saw before, right? On the service consumer side, it's about supported outcomes, cost imposed, uh, uh, you know, not sorry, cost removed, risk removed. And then on the service provider side, it's about, intended outcomes, costs introduced, and risk introduced. So you might think of them as mirror images of each other, right? And so, you know, and that's the reason service consumers turn to service providers, because there's a certain value, that the outcome that they're trying to achieve, but there are certain costs and risks that they want the service provider to manage on their behalf. So the answer there is B. Number 25, which is a purpose of the service desk practice? So the answer here is actually C, guys. A is actually speaking about the purpose of problem management, right? To reduce the likelihood and impact of incidents by identifying actual and potential causes of incidents, right? And so that doesn't work there. Uh, the so the purpose of service desk is capturing demand for incident resolution and service requests. And again, if we keep in mind that the service desk, incident management, and service request management are tightly intertwined, then when I looked at the responses, I see that incident resolution and service requests are both included as part of the answer as C. So that's my most likely candidate. I'm going to look at the due diligence is going to require me to look at the other responses as well. But based on that, I'm going to say this is my most likely candidate. But let me look at everything else and see if this holds up, or if perhaps there's another answer that's even better than this one, that that contains both of these elements as well. So the answer there is C. Number 26, how should an organization adopt continual improvement methods? So the answer here is actually B. So when we talked about continual improvement, we did say that ITIL isn't prescriptive. It doesn't say you need to use our continual improvement model to the exclusion of some of the other methods out there. But it does recommend that we select a few key methods that best suit the way the organization does improvements, the types of initiative that the organization undertakes, right? Uh, there are a lot of methods that can be used, but best practice warns against trying to use too many, right? And so, you know, and we don't want to be totally reliant on just one way of doing things as well. So our best answer here is B, select a few key methods for the types of improvement that the organization handles. Number 27, which ITIL concept describes governance? So the answer here is D, the service value system. So what are the components of the service value system? We have the guiding principles, we have governance, we have the service value chain, we have the ITIL practices, and we have continual improvement, which is based on the continual improvement model. So governance is one of the components, one of the elements of the service value system. Now, it's true that there's, governance, and, you know, governance is reflected in the organizations and people's dimension of the four dimensions of service management. Uh, and so I can see why someone may have, thought, well, okay, maybe that's four dimensions of service management. But here, because governance is what's the word I'm looking for? Is definitively laid out as one of our elements. The service value system is the correct answer. Number 28, which is a recommendation of the service desk practice? Yes, we want the service desk to have an understanding of the wider organization. Very good. Number 29, which guiding principle recommends organizing work into smaller manageable sections that can be executed and completed in a timely manner? So the answer here is actually progress iteratively with feedback, right? So D doesn't really work because this is the guiding principle. This is the guiding principle that encourages us to be sure that we're involving the right people, right? Which will lead to better decision making and a greater likelihood of being successful, right? When we talked about progress iteratively with feedback, this was the guiding principle that said that expressed to us that, by breaking work down into more manageable, smaller sections, we can better focus our efforts on the work that's being done. And also by doing so, we might actually be able to uh, finish the work more quickly, because by using those feedback loops, we can incorporate that feedback. We can make adjustments, course directions, course changes, and what have you. And as we're moving towards the goal, and it gives us more flexibility to respond to changing circumstances. Number 30, what is a standard change? So we'll want to go back and take a look at the definitions of those different changes. The answer here is a change that is well understood, fully documented, and pre-authorized. And I think the key word here, at least for me, is pre-authorized. So standard changes are changes that we've taken a look at, and the risk is pretty low. Uh, and so as long as it's the work procedures, the work instructions are complied with, this represents little risk to the organization. It is true that perhaps on an annual basis or whatever the organization decides, we might want to revisit standard changes just to ask ourselves, does this still apply? Does this still, should this still be, a standard change, or has something changed whereby we need to change this classification? But the answer here is A. Number 31, what happens if a workaround becomes the permanent way of dealing with a problem that cannot be resolved cost effectively? So the answer here is actually C. The problem remains in the known error status. It won't always be the case that we need to raise a change request, right? In order, and if we do raise a change request, the only thing that does really is put the problem ticket, uh, in, for lack of a better word, in a suspended status while we work through the change enablement practice, the procedures associated with that. And once that is completed, then that's going to resolve the problem and we'll be able to close the problem ticket. So here they were asking us, you know, to understand why a workaround would become our permanent or semi-permanent way of dealing with a problem. And they talked about cost effectively. And so what that means is that for whatever reason, the organization has decided that they don't want to spend the money or they can't justify the cost that's associated with resolving the problem at this particular time. So it could be that we know what to do to fix the problem, but management has just decided that it's too expensive. And so under those circumstances, it's going to remain in the known error status until such time we come to the conclusion that, yes, let's go ahead and come to a full resolution for this particular problem. Number 32, what is the definition of change? Yes, the answer is A, to add, modify, or remove anything that could have a direct or indirect effect on services. Number 33, what is the definition of an event? Yes, the answer is A, any change of state that has significance for the, sorry, for the management of a service or other configuration item. Number 34, which describes outcomes? So the answer here is C. Outcome is a result, right? A tangible or intangible deliverable is an output. So a deliverable is an output. And don't forget, outputs enable outcomes, right? And so one of the things that happens when we're working with the customer, the consumer, to understand what outcomes they're trying to achieve, this helps us to understand what outputs we need to deliver that's going to enable them to achieve that outcome. So deliverable of an activity is an output. The results, the desired results, to be more specific, those are that's the outcome. So the answer there is C, the results that are desired by a stakeholder. Number 35, which is not a key focus of the information and technology dimension. Okay, very good. Roles and responsibilities. The answer is D. Roles and responsibilities are a key focus of the organizations and people dimension of the 4 dimensions of service management. Very good. So there is overlap between all of the dimensions of service management, but each dimension has their key focus, right? So organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, value streams and processes. All righty, number 36. This is an interesting question. Which practices are typically involved in the implementation of a problem resolution? So this is one of those, a type of multiple response question where, we have to combine a couple of the answers in order to arrive at the correct answer. So the correct answer here is actually D, 1 and 4, right? So if we look at our possibilities, yes, continue improvement. Yes, well, we learned that problem management interacts quite often with continuous improvement. Service request management, don't forget, we're talking about predefined requests here, things that are a normal part of service delivery. So this is not something that is going to be associated with problem management. So 1 and 2 do not work there. The same thing is true for service level management. Now, it is true that if I'm responsible, if I'm working, if one of my roles is service level management, I am concerned about a service that's experiencing uh, some type of issue that has risen to the level of a problem, but I'm not directly involved with the implementation of the problem resolution. I'll be informed about it because, it's having an effect on service that I'm responsible for, that I'm accountable for, but I'm not necessarily involved with the implementation. So we can eliminate number 2 and number 3. And so that leaves us with D, the answers being 1 and 4. Number 37, which is a key consideration for the guiding principle, keep it simple and practical? Yes, the answer is B. We want to understand how each element contributes to value creation. And when we discussed this guiding principle, we talked about how, you know, it needs to be outcome based. And the reason it needs to be outcome based is by understanding the outcome. When we examine the elements of the task, the procedure, the practice, the service, or whatever it is that we're looking at, we can more readily understand whether the different elements, the different activities actually contribute to achieving the outcome. And if they don't, then they should be eliminated because under lean principles, it's considered to be a form of waste. And so keep it simple and practical is about judging what we need to keep, boiling down our activities to the minimum necessary to achieve the outcome. Number 38, what should be done first when applying the focus on value guiding principle? So actually the answer here is C. We need to determine who the service consumer is in each situation. Uh, you know, so for the focus on value, in order to understand what value it is that we need to be able to deliver, we have to know who the consumer is so we can understand what it is that they value. And so the outcomes that we're going to try to deliver need to be based on our understanding of what it is the service consumer values. So again, when we looked at that principle, one of the first things we talked about is how everything we do should map directly or indirectly, should map value directly or indirectly to our sales, the service consumers, and then to the other stakeholders. So the answer here is C. We need to first determine who the service consumer is in this particular scenario, in this particular concept, right? We need to know that first before we identify the outcome. 39, a service provider describes a package that includes a laptop with software licenses and support. This is an example of, yes, this is an example of a service offering. Very good. And last but not least, what is the definition of warranty? Yes, warranty is B, the assurance that a product or service will meet agreed requirements. D is utility, right? The functionality offered by a product or service to meet a particular need, right? So the answer there is going to be B. Okay, so how did you guys do? And the reason we want to do this test run is just so we can get a good understanding of what areas we were we were strong in, that we have a good understanding of, and what areas we should go back and review so we can focus our review efforts in order to, be successful when we sit the actual exam. And so the threshold is 26 out of 40. And so, if we achieve that threshold, then our goal is to increase our safety margin as much as possible. If we weren't able, if we fell short of that threshold, then our goal is to cross that threshold by as much as we possibly can. So those are the things. And so that's the purpose of being able to, doing the practice exam. So please, so you'll want to go back and review the material, and then you can use the sample paper 2 and do another practice test, and that should be useful as well. And while I'm thinking about it, while I'm at it, I have a document that I'm going to upload, and it's just a list of about 3 or 4 websites. The last time I checked, they were still there with some additional quiz questions, right? So if you think that would be useful, you can also, go to these websites, and they're short quizzes. They're not long quizzes, maybe 10 questions, 10 questions or so. But that could be useful as well, because the questions will be asked in a different way, structured in a different way. So they might, the questions might approach the information from a different angle, and that can be useful. That can be useful sometimes as well. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys found this course to be useful, and I want to thank you for participating. It's always a pleasure, to hopefully impart knowledge that will enable class participants to be successful when they do sit the exam. I do urge you to take the exam as soon as you're comfortable with taking the exam. And so that's because, it's better to take it, well, at least in my opinion, it's better to take it sooner than later, because, the information is still fresh in your mind, and you're still on what I like to call ITIL Island, right? Under best practices, this is what ITIL says is the optimal solution, the optimal way for doing things. It may or may not be that way in your actual environment. And so if we wait too long, and we start forgetting some of the information, we might rely on how we do it, and that might not be the correct answer according to ITIL. So I just urge you guys to take the exam as soon as you're comfortable with taking the exam. So that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions for me before I end the session?
So I don't think at least I haven't received a voucher yet.
Okay, has anyone else received the voucher?
No, I haven't either.
So I think you guys will receive the voucher pretty soon. So I will contact learners just to say that you guys asked about the vouchers. And so that might, incentivize them to go ahead and send those over to you guys. But once you receive the vouchers, then you'll be able to, if you don't already have a PeopleCert profile, you'll be able to go over to PeopleCert, create a profile, and use the voucher to schedule a date and time for the examination. It is a virtual proctor, so you have to use a webcam enabled device. I'm sorry. They will require you to download Exam Shield, right, which is a software that they use to help monitor you. And I think this is just to ensure that you don't have any tabs open to, you know, any websites that have, you know, information about ITIL, that sort of thing. And when you sign up, they will want to see some type of photo ID. So just to make you guys aware of that. So you'll have to, well, when you schedule the exam, uh, you'll have to provide, they'll want to take a photo of it, you know, take a screenshot of it, of some type of photo ID. Uh, I don't know, a driver's license. I'm not sure. I know when we used to do face-to-face in-person examinations, you know, a company ID with a photo was acceptable. I'm not sure about the virtual proctor, but that may be something you want to, you know, when you're signing up, you'll want to pay attention to the details and see what the options are as it relates to what type of ID is acceptable. But generally, I'm thinking it's probably has to be some type of a government issued ID since we're doing it virtually, right? In person is a little bit different because, you know, I'm seeing that it's the same person, right? So anyway, that's all I have. So I'm going to go ahead and end the session. I'm going to wish you guys success. And so you're going to, you know, success on your exams. And again, I hope you found this course to be useful. So you guys have it's Friday, right? So you guys have a great weekend. And I guess that's all I have.